Now, how do we go from this?
Battling against nerds is like sitting in a class and you watching all the nerds put together their best science project. Nigga, your nose fake, your stomach fake. You don't write raps.
To this.
Drake, if you listening to this, homie, listen to me. My nigga, shine. I don't want to see you lose. Real niggas just want to see real niggas shine together. Real niggas come up together.
Drake and Rick Ross have such a legendary catalog of music together that even though Rick Ross hates Drake to the point where he recorded and released his own Drake diss track just hours after Drake released his Push-Ups diss song, every time Rick Ross does a concert, part of his shows still end up sounding like a Drake karaoke night. I mean, let's put this into perspective. In Ross's career, he's had 3 hits in the top 10 of the Billboard charts, and all of them feature La Brianna. In Rick Ross's entire career, he's had 1 song hit over 1 billion streams on Spotify, and that is a song by La Brianna. And if you look at the Rick Ross songs that are getting the most amount of streams on a daily basis in 2026, 4 out of the top 5 most streamed Rick Ross songs today all feature Drake. But make no mistake, this isn't me saying that Drake was just spoon-feeding Rick Ross all of his biggest hits throughout his career. The 2 rappers just have undeniable chemistry, and it's helped both of them progress and excel as artists. Yes, a lot of Rick Ross's biggest hits feature Drake, but it was the time that Drake spent with Ross early in his career that motivated him to even become the hitmaker that he is today. Just months before Drake and Ross started going at each other in diss songs in 2024, Drake was on stage saying that Rick Ross was his favorite person to write music with, and that very early on in his career he was overlooking the Vegas Strip on a penthouse balcony with Rick Ross, manifesting the idea that later in his career he'd be performing at the arenas he's now in.
And I was shooting a music video with my favorite rapper to rap with it. By the way, I got a lot of respect for a lot of rappers, but I got one guy, he's my favorite person to rap with on any song. His name is Rick Ross. That's my brother. We were in the Palms Hotel overlooking Vegas. I said, I wonder if I'll ever be big enough to play at one of these arenas that I'm standing at down here. Now look at this guy.
And throughout that same time period of Drake's career where he was on that Vegas balcony with Rick Ross, dreaming about performing in these massive arenas, he was also doing interviews where he'd say that it was rappers like Rick Ross who kept him on his toes to stay out of the clubs and in the studios 24/7, because he knew if he wasn't in the booth, it was rappers on their A-game like Rose, Lil Wayne, or Kanye West who most definitely were cooking up a banger.
Nah, it's more the influential people that I know. I don't really think about the people that did negative things to me. I think about the individuals like Wayne, like Ross, like Ye, like the guys that I know. You know, if I take tonight off, I know that one of them is probably in the studio crafting something magical, you know, so I should probably stay a little longer. I should probably not go to the club. I should just, you know, work, because I know that there's somebody else working if I decide to go play.
So as you can see, Rick Ross and Drake were not just 2 artists who happened to make a couple records together and then had a falling out. Nah, it runs much deeper than that. In fact, Rick Ross was embedded into the world that built Drake before Drake was even Drake. Back when Drake was still a teen actor on Degrassi, the very first Rick Ross song that ever hit the Billboard charts was a DJ Khaled collaboration that also featured Drake's mentor, Lil Wayne.
Oh, Lil Wayne's just too good. Oh, Lil Wayne's just too good.
By the time Drake put pen to paper, signing with Lil Wayne and Birdman's Young Money Cash Money imprint in 2009, Rick Ross was already basically a brother-in-law to the YMCMB family. There were dozens of Rick Ross and Cash Money collaborations from the late 2000s that were floating around, whether it was on mixtapes, albums, even DJ Khaled singles. Ross collaborated with damn near every Cash Money member, from the head honcho Birdman down to the top-ranking soldier Lil Wayne. Their smaller acts like Briscoe or Glasses Malone. Rick Ross even collaborated with the Cash Money rock and roll golden boy Kevin Rudolph. You guys remember that name? Rick Ross was so intertwined with the Cash Money collective that him and Birdman even recorded a collaboration project together way back in 2009.
Bitch from the shit, Rick Ross Birdman album, titled H. You know what I'm saying? H represent a lot of different things. The hustle, homies, heroin, made about music in this thing,
CMB Maybach music.
After Hurricane Katrina hit Lil Wayne and Birdman's hometown of Louisiana in 2005, the Cash Money headquarters relocated to Rick Ross's hometown of Miami, and they embraced Ross immediately. This is how and when they started collaborating together very frequently. So with Ross being extremely close to the Cash Money crew, it was damn near inevitable that we'd get a Drake and Ross collaboration at some point in time, but no one knew how insane of a duo they would truly be when it all first started. In fact, it wasn't even Lil Wayne or Birdman or any Cash Money member who initially introduced Rick Ross to Drake. Instead, it was a woman that Ross was dating who was just playing Drake's music. Ross would link back up in the studio with Lil Wayne, likely sometime in late 2009, and this is where he'd meet Drake for the first time, and likely similar to how he was working with Lil Wayne, or just how Lil Wayne was working in general. When they would do these studio sessions, they would knock out multiple songs in a single night, so it made sense that once Drake and Ross started collaborating, they would flood the market with dozens of bangers and never look back. I remember the first track that Drake and Rick Ross collaborated on. It was actually a DJ Khaled song with Young Jeezy and Usher as well, called Fed Up. Now around this same time that Khaled would put Rick Ross and Drake on their first track together, Khaled would also be responsible for conceiving what you could call Ross and Drake's best collab together, Aston Martin Music. Justice League produced the beat of that record, and it seems like they actually made it with an artist more similar to Drake than Rick Ross in mind. The main inspiration was old school R&B, and they even said they didn't do the song specifically for Ross. They had actually first sent the beat over to Drake, but he must have missed it. Then Ross somehow got access to it. He finished it off with Chrisette Michele, who did part of the hook. Then that version got into the hands of DJ Khaled. I'm guessing he was potentially going to use it for one of his albums. And maybe with Khaled thinking this was going to be another one of his, big collaborations, he sends that over to Drake. When Drake hears it, he actually reaches back out to Justice League and says, yo, why didn't you guys send me this beat? This is amazing. And they're like, buddy, we did send you this beat. We sent it to you before Rick Ross even got on it. So while Drake records to this beat that DJ Khaled just sent to him, he actually gets inspired and doesn't just do the hook, but he also adds in his own pretty long verse, and that becomes a song of its own. One of Drake's best songs ever, honestly, Paris Morton Music. Drake would post the track on his blog just a couple days before Rick Ross released the official version, Aston Martin Music, on his own album. So you can already see this was the start of Rick Ross indirectly inspiring Drake to create some of his best work, and Drake laying down the hooks for tracks that would later go on to become some of Rick Ross's biggest hits. Again, it was a very reciprocal, mutually beneficial partnership. For example, let's bring it back to DJ Khaled for a second, which, by the way, I have a whole video breaking down his current beef with Drake. I'll leave that in the link of the description of this video, but similar to Rick Ross, a lot of Khaled's biggest hits feature Drake. The only difference is Khaled didn't really provide anything in return. Rick Ross was really the A&R, or the executive producer that the whole world always thought DJ Khaled was. What do I mean by that? Well, let's look at some of Drake and Ross's other collaborations from this point early on in the timeline.
YOLO, you only live once.
If you know Rick Ross's music, you know he has an excellent ear for beats. He's also really strong with curation, always knowing the right artist to put on the hooks, which artist to put on which beats. I mean, having T-Pain, Kanye West, and Lil Wayne back in 2008 in all their prime years on Maybach Music 2, that's what I mean by, Rick Ross was always the A&R or executive producer that DJ Khaled thought he was. But how did that apply to Drake? Well, by late 2011, Rick Ross starts bringing legendary producer Just Blaze in the studio with him. If you guys don't know who Just Blaze is, you could look up his production catalog. He's done classics with everyone from Jay-Z, Kanye West, even T.I., even Joe Budden. But it had been a while since we, heard some Just Blaze production. His last big hit was 2008, Live Your Life, with Rihanna and T.I. So 3-4 years later, Rick Ross is collaborating with him heavily, even crediting himself for the Just Blaze resurgence that he predicted would occur. And in that same interview where he says that, he also mentions the fact that he had recently just connected Drake with Just Blaze.
Most definitely.
How did that even happen? What made you decide I want to work with Just Blaze?
You know, just always had that sound, and I always want to be at the head of the curve. And I think it's finna be a huge Just Blaze resurgence. And when you listen to the drums and the kicks, you know, us being in the club last night, I could see a few people going through their Rolodex for that Just Blaze contact now.
He said he's working with Drake now too.
Most definitely he is. You know, Drake came through the greenhouse last night. Yeah, we got something dope on his album.
Now, this Breakfast Club interview was from October of 2011. The song Rick Ross was referring to that Drake had just cooked up with Just Blaze was Lord Knows, a collaboration that also featured Ross, and again, one of Drake's best records. So you see the pattern here? Every time Drake and Ross link up, some of the best music in their entire catalogs is cooked up, but something bigger occurred with this record. Right before Ross's verse on this song, he's just kind of talking that bouse talk, and he randomly says, YOLO, you only live once. When Drake heard that, he immediately thought the term deserved its own song, and that's when he cooked up the motto with Lil Wayne.
Do you think that YOLO got way out of hand?
It got huge, but I mean, that's not a bad thing. I guess it's just, it became one of those things that everyone's like, all right, enough now, enough. Yeah. That's kind of what drew me to it. You know, I heard it and I was like, nah, this is more than just some ad lib. Because, you know, originally it was just a Rick Ross ad lib on Take Care. He was like, you know, YOLO, you only live once. And I was like, man, that sounds really good. That should be a song, not just like the tail end of a outro. Wow. So I took it and made it into a song, and I texted him. I was like, yo, I got a song out of that ad lib that you gave me. And he was like, all right, cool.
So this whole time, this was Ross.
It's pretty much Rick Ross that came up with it. Seriously, though.
Wow.
I've said that several times. Just everyone just continues to give me the credit, which I'm not mad at. Keep giving me the credit. I'll take it.
You'll take that.
Yeah, of course you'll take the credit for another artist's idea, eh, La Brianna? The irony is that, you know how in Kendrick's song Not Like Us, he says, Lil Baby helped you get your lingo up? Yeah, before it was Lil Baby, it was Rick Ross, who was helping Drake coin terms like YOLO. And before Drake was suing over that diss song, YOLO ended up becoming such a big term or a big meme that there were rumors Drake was actually considering suing people who were making YOLO merch and trying to trademark the term for himself. I mean, I was like 14 when the whole YOLO craze happened, and this word was everywhere. This was like what 6'7" is today for the kids.
High school junior from Arlington, Texas. He was upset because he was being forced to take something called the STAR Standardized Test. He wrote YOLO on it and drew a sideways smiley face and tweeted the picture to his school district. The school suspended him for 4 days, which that to me is ridiculous. He's a teenage boy. They should be happy he didn't draw a penis on it. But I will say I do not support YOLOing. YOLOing might be the only thing more annoying than yodeling. A lot of people are using the word YOLO now, if it is indeed a word.
So as you can see here, not only was Rick Ross inspiring Drake to push his pen, like I showed you guys earlier in this video, there's interviews from Drake around this time period where he's saying that what keeps him hungry to elevate his pen is knowing that if he's not in the studio that night, an artist like Rick Ross will be in there outworking him. Also, aside from the fact that, again, a lot of the best music in both their catalogs by this point in time came from collaborations they had together. Free Spirit, Lord Knows, Aston Martin Music, Made Men, Us Remix, again, we're only in 2011. Beyond Ross gifting Drake motivation and strong collaboration, he was now also giving him catchphrases like YOLO. And he was giving Drake new collaborative partners, because around this time period, Rick Ross forms his own record label, MMG, and signs Meek Mill. Meek and Drake would form their own friendship and collaborative partnership, and by early 2012, it was even rumored that Meek Mill may have been dating the same woman that Drake for years had been rumored to have been dating, Rihanna. And someone who had definitely dated Rihanna, Chris Brown, had got into a pretty hilariously pathetic Twitter beef with Meek Mill over Rihanna back in the day when all this was going down. Now, this doesn't have too much to do with Ross and Drake. I just thought it was hilarious. Meek Mill subliminally tweets at Chris Brown saying, "You took me off your song because she let me watch The Throne." And then Chris Brown, referencing Meek Mill's Dream Chaser's imprint, he tweets out, "She's a dream chaser. There's a lot of dreamers, so she'll be running forever." Then Meek tweets out, "These girls belong to the game, not you. Never get that confused and think that's all you." And for whatever reason, Chris Brown decided to basically like that tweet. Back then, it was you didn't have likes, you just had favorites. But why I said this feud was hilarious is because Rihanna ended up jumping in herself, clowning both Meek and Drake, calling them HOEs, and flipping the whole "she belongs to the streets" narrative narrative by saying, nah, I'm the one picking and choosing who I want to be with. And obviously, if it doesn't happen to be you guys, you end up fighting each other over me on Twitter. But the Twitter beefs would soon make their way to the club. When Meek Mill and Drake had a table at the New York nightclub WIP in June of 2012. That same night, Chris Brown had a table at the other side of the club, and he actually sent Drake and Meek's table a bottle. And in return, Drake allegedly sent Chris Brown back a bottle with a note that said, "I'm with the love of your life." And from there, an entire brawl emerged in that nightclub where everyone was throwing bottles at each other, even leaving Chris Brown with a bloody chin. Now, while Drake and Meek Mill were on the same side of that fight, which obviously derived from jealousy over a woman, it was likely both their jealousy over another female superstar a couple years later that would be the catalyst for one of the biggest beefs in both their careers. Allegedly, a couple months after Meek Mill started dating Nicki Minaj, they ended up getting into a fight while shopping in Miami, and Nicki name-dropped Drake. Next thing you know, Meek Mill was name-dropping Drake on Twitter, exposing one of the biggest secrets behind his career, that he's got some ghosts in the OVO sweatshop. Now, when Meek was going on this Twitter tirade, Rick Ross would allegedly tweet this. As you can see, if this was a real tweet, Ross was seemingly picking a side, saying that Drake was better than Meek. But Meek Mill wouldn't believe it, saying that Ross is really with me. I don't look at no tweet, it's really love. We don't just act like we're cool for the camera. And for the camera, in an interview, Rick Ross a couple months later would claim that this tweet was definitely fake. But I got a question for you guys. Was anyone around and chronically online back then to the point where you remember Rick Ross tweeting this and then quickly deleting it at the height of the Meek Mill and Drake battle? Let me know in the comments on that.
Now, hold on, now it was a tweet that was sent out that made it seem like you was in support of Drake.
That was a fake tweet.
Okay, I didn't know.
Yeah, no, I saw you.
I
saw you tweeting. But if you don't,
it's certain things y'all just gotta know off top. It's certain things you can't.
They got you, Charlamagne.
You can't even question. You did.
I don't know the greater than, lesser than signs sometimes either. I be having to look to make sure.
I don't even tweet like that. Dudes like me don't use the greater hand, lesser hand. We don't use that. We don't even know what that is.
Now, this interview took place in October of 2015. Keep in mind, this is after back-to-back. This is after a large portion of the world is saying that Meek Mill may have been done for. But Rick Ross kind of plays it off somewhat neutral, saying that the battle was good for the culture. Ultimately, it was a feud that boiled down to competition. He says, their issues weren't personal. They were very light, even comparing it to, a fight you might have with a friend in high school. And even though Meek Mill was signed to Ross's label, Rick Ross still says here that Drake is his friend.
At the end of the game for me, my position, I think this is what's good for the culture. Mm-hmm. Because, coming up in this game, I've seen it, we've all seen it. You will have skirmishes. Mm-hmm. You will have scrimmages going for that number one spot. You dig? And I feel like really by Meek Mill being my little brother and Drake being my little homie, I really feel like they was two little homies that was in high school on the way from school and fought over a pair of J's. You dig?
Yeah, but usually the big homie stops it. There was no stopping this one.
And when the new J's come out, they back cool. And for me, I really beef. I beef. Mm-hmm. These records that was released, no one's name was even, mentioned.
Now, while he's kind of downplaying the severity of the L that Meek Mill took or how intense this battle was, he makes sure it's known that, in his opinion, Meek Mill did not get bodied by Drake and that his career is far from over.
What it is, ain't nobody get bodied. If you think that was body, you bugging. That's light work. We got more money we finna go get. You think Meek Mill through, you tripping. I'm just letting you know that. Yeah, the music the homie making, and when he drop a bomb, it's a bomb, and y'all gonna drop bombs on that. Yeah.
Now, while Meek Mill did prove haters wrong, his career was far from over by this point in time. Again, the conversation really was like this was the end for Meek. He was cooked. And even with that being the case, and all the damage to Meek's career stemming from Drake, his own boss, the owner of the record label that Meek Mill was signed to, Ricky Rose, still said that he'd be potentially open to collaborating with Drake, but conversations first needed to be had beforehand. And on a side note, you'll see later in this video, this sounds very similar to how Rick Ross currently speaks on his beef with Drake in 2026.
Now, if Drake sends you a track to get on, is that cool to do, or is it, I can't do that right now?
Like I said, that's my little homie. You know what I mean? That's a discussion we gotta have. But y'all would be surprised if it was a Drake Meek Mill collaboration in the future. That would blow. Okay, then. So you know, just being in the game, it ain't even about the era.
Back on Instagram.
It's just when it go down. It's gonna be
the reason
official.
I say era because you would never do a song with 50 Cent.
I wouldn't.
But their beef was different, is what he's saying.
That's light work what they was doing.
But I never thought Jay would do a record with Nas either. They was deep into it as well, so you never know.
And when it's nothing personal to you, when you hear it and it's about the fans, it's about the music, that's what you keep the focus on. You stiff arm all the suckers, of course you dig.
Now, a couple months later, Rick Ross would drop a new project, and on there'd be a song called Color Money. And on the song Color Money, Rick Ross had a couple bars seemingly aimed at Drake, rapping, "I got more money than the P-word, the kitty cat that you're signed to." This album came about a year after Lil Wayne would announce that he was actually splitting up from Birdman and Cash Money. He wanted off the label and in fact was suing the label for $51 million, claiming that, they stole a lot of money from him. So people thought maybe that Rick Ross bar was a shot at not just Drake, who had just, destroyed Ross's artist Meek, but also maybe Wayne, since Wayne was having money issues. See here, Rick Ross has a way of speaking in code in his interviews. You don't really know fully what he's saying here, but he's asked if he was dissing Birdman, Lil Wayne, and Drake. He ends up saying that he's cool with Lil Wayne, he's cool with Jay Prince, who's the guy that discovered Drake, and he says the rest, you take it how you want to take it. Pretty much implying that, I was dissing, Drake and Birdman. Now, this interview actually only took place about 2 months after the prior interview that I was showing you guys clips from, where Rick Ross was saying that he was open to collaborating with Drake if the proper conversations were had. And he kind of doubles down on that here, but again, he speaks so cryptically, you don't really know what type of message he's trying to get across. Now, it's funny because Rick Ross kind of does all this like tiptoeing around, whether or not he's mad at Drake or has a problem with Drake, or if he wants to collaborate with Drake in the future. Like he really kind of leaves that door open by speaking cryptically. But when it comes to Birdman, Rick Ross makes it very clear that he definitely has an issue with the Cash Money founder, Birdman, due to the way that Birdman was treating his most loyal artist, Lil Wayne. At the time, you gotta remember, it was a lot bigger than Lil Wayne just suing his record label over unpaid music profits. Lil Wayne's tour bus was getting shot up. Lil Wayne's own label was not letting him release his own album. When Jay-Z tried to step in to help Wayne and have him release his music through the streaming platform Tidal, Birdman allegedly threatened to sue both Jay-Z and Tidal for even thinking of releasing Wayne's music anywhere else. So Rick Ross says no, the bars weren't taking aim at Lil Wayne, but instead, the diss was aimed at both Birdman and Drake. About a year and a half after this interview took place, Rick Ross would release another album with another diss aimed at Birdman, but this time it was a lot more extensive. The song was called Idols Become Rivals, an entire diss track aimed at Birdman, mainly for the way that he treated several of his artists, including obviously Lil Wayne, but also DJ Khaled, who was briefly signed to the Cash Money imprint in the early 2010s. Rick Ross does a spoken word outro on this diss song where he goes into detail on how Birdman basically robbed DJ Khaled. Now, what I find a little bit interesting here is that if you really look deep enough, there's actually a lot of patterns between how Rick Ross approached his beef with Birdman at this time in 2017 and how he approached his beef with Drake in 2024. See, in 2017, it seemed like the entire industry had kind of turned against Birdman. And rightfully so, some may argue, right? I mean, you could not find a more loyal artist than Lil Wayne, who stuck by Birdman and Cash Money all throughout the 2000s when every other Cash Money artist had left. And not only did he remain loyal, but he also brought some of the biggest superstars of the next generation like Drake, Nicki, and Tyga, putting the profits of their music into Birdman's pockets. How could Birdman betray someone like this, right? Young Thug even said he was about to sign to Birdman, but after hearing about this whole Lil Wayne situation, he decided to distance himself as well. And by 2017, Birdman had no real superstar left on the roster and no one who really wanted to do business with him. And this is when Ross decided it was a good time to go at him. Similarly, in 2024, the entire industry decides to turn on Drake. And that was when Ross decided to go at him. Like I mentioned before, in the 2017 diss song against Birdman, Rick Ross does a spoken word outro where he says the reason he's even dissing Birdman in the first place is because of the bad business that Birdman did to his friend DJ Khaled. Very similarly, on the 2024 diss song that Rick Ross penned against Drake, he also had a spoken word outro where he said that the main reason why he's going at Drake is because of the bad business that Drake did with Rick Ross's friend French Montana. You could make the argument that maybe Rick Ross is just a good friend sticking up for his other friends like DJ Khaled in the Birdman case or French Montana in the Drake case. Or you can make the argument that Rick Ross has a tendency to kick his former collaborators when they're down, when the whole industry turned on them, and then using his other friends as scapegoats to make it seem like this beef was about something bigger than it really was. Because right now, if you ask French Montana if he himself is mad at Drake, he says no. Back in 2017, if you asked DJ Khaled if he was upset with Birdman, he was saying he's not. So why did Ross feel the need to defend these artists for issues that they weren't even mad about themselves? We'll try to answer that later in this video. Because in the meantime, we're back in 2017, and it was in this year that Drake started hinting at the fact that him and Meek Mill were about to squash their beef. And that's exactly what they did a year later in 2018 on the Meek Mill track, Going Bad. And it seemed like now that Meek Mill and Drake were cool again, Rick Ross was able to collab with Drake and it wouldn't look like he's snubbing his own artist. So they would collaborate again several times starting in 2019 with Money in the Grave and Gold Roses, and then again with the 2021 tracks You Only Live Twice and Lemon Pepper Freestyle, where Drake raps that Rick Ross is sitting on 255 acres. Basically, like, he's got a big plot of land for his house, and just remember that line, it'll play an important role pretty shortly in the story. In the meantime, while Drake had a big appreciation for Rick Ross's big mansion, Rick Ross had a big appreciation for his close friendship with Drake and the way that they were both able to write music together in a very quick manner.
And Drizzy, our relationship most definitely is real close, you know what I mean?
I'm gonna be honest with you. It's like you and Drake got an album together.
I'm gonna be honest, I don't know how much music we got, because it's so easy working with the homie.
Rick Ross even goes on to say that him and Drake were in the top 2% of writers within hip-hop, up there with the Jay-Z's, to where they could just hear a beat that they like and write a crazy verse on the spot with seemingly no pressure. So as you can see here, Rick Ross by 2022 sings pretty high praise of Drake's pen.
We in the 2% when it come to writers. 2% is when you walk into the room, you hear something, a beat, a production that you actually love. It can actually create it, write it, and execute it right then. I can't say I've done that with many artists. It's not even 5 artists.
Oh, so you're saying Drake?
He's in the 2%.
He is the 2%. Wow. That's the muse.
He's in the 2%.
Now this interview would commence a nice little run of both Rick Ross and Drake complimenting each other in the public light. Like I showed you guys earlier in this video, Drake went on tour and during a performance actually stopped the show to say that Rick Ross was one of his favorite people to write music with.
I got a lot of respect for a lot of rappers, but I got one guy. He's my favorite person to rap with on any song. His name is Rick Ross. That's my brother.
A couple months after this, Meek Mill and Rick Ross in November of 2023 were gearing up to drop their collaboration tape together. And during an interview and promotion of the project, they even said that Drake might make an appearance on the album.
And yes, Meek Mill and Rose, we f with the boy heavily. You might hear him on some of this new shit that's coming out very soon, you heard?
You better believe it.
Now, Drake wouldn't make an appearance on this album, but just 2 months later, Rick Ross would still be talking positively about Drake in January of 2024 on a live stream with Adin Ross, reminiscing on their classic collaborations together, and even saying that his process of working with Drake was magical.
Like one of your favorite songs with Drake?
Stay Scheming, I'm gonna say Stay Scheming. Came out in the streets, it came to us when we put that record together, it was one of those vibes. So that was most definitely magical.
So lemon pepper is your favorite wing?
Favorite.
Yeah, is that so? That's why when you and Drake did that song, he had to have you on there with lemon.
Why
pepper.
not, man? It's the biggest.
Yeah, of
man.
course.
Why not? It was super dope.
So while everything seemed fine and good in the beginning of 2024, it wouldn't take long for this entire nearly 15-year legendary collaborative duo to possibly never mess with each other ever again. On March 22nd, 2024, Future and Metro Boomin released their collaboration album, We Don't Trust You, and the feature list included artists like The Weeknd, Kendrick Lamar, who of course kicked off the entire 20v1 with Drake, and on that feature list as well was Rick Ross. Initially this didn't seem weird, right? There were other artists on this project, Playboi Carti, Travis Scott. None of them had a blatant issue with Drake like Kendrick Lamar did, or even The Weeknd, who was featured on the project. But Future himself kicked off this album already sending subliminal shots at Drake, so it was kind of unclear where Ross really stood. But he definitely made that clear just a couple days later. For whatever reason, Rick Ross would mysteriously unfollow Drake off Instagram. At this point in time, Drake is still on that tour, the very same tour where a couple shows beforehand he's saying Rick Ross is his favorite rapper to rap with. But now on the tour, he's sending Rick Ross's ex-girlfriend, Christina Mackey, 3 backstage tickets to come watch Drake perform live. Now it's kind of crazy because Ross and Christina had only broken up a couple weeks before Rick Ross appeared on that Future album and Christina appeared at this Drake show. And she had said in interviews that they split up pretty amicably on decent terms. So it's kind of crazy that just weeks later, she's now out here at a Drake show, right?
Look at this. She's at Drake's show.
So from there, it was all out war. Rick Ross would let it be known he does not mess with Drake by posting a video of himself seemingly in his Maybach bumping Kendrick Lamar's verse on Like That. He then posted a picture on Instagram of someone holding up a bottle of Bel Air Rosé, tagging Metro Boomin, Future, Kendrick Lamar, and then Drake. Now this was the first major statement that Rick Ross had picked a side, because as you see here, he put Kendrick Lamar above Drake in this list of tags, and the song that was playing on this post was Like That, Kendrick Lamar's verse to be exact. This was a competition for that top spot, and by putting Kendrick above Drake on this list in this post, Rick Ross was letting it be known who he thought the better artist was. Now about 2 weeks after this mayhem, this confusion, the world wondering who was on Drake's side and who wasn't, Drake let it be known that it was him versus everybody. At least that's what he thought. On April 13th, a leaked version of his song Push Ups would hit the internet. And of course he had tons of bars on there aimed for Rick Ross, seemingly confirming that the two were no longer on good terms. The first bars opening up the song are, I can never be nobody's #1 fan, your first #1, I had to put it in your hand. Many people thought this could be a shot at Future, but it could also be one at Rick Ross, because just a couple months prior, Drake was saying that Ross was his favorite person to rap with, but now he's saying, I can't be a fan of anyone whose biggest hits are thanks to me. He doubles down on this later in the song, saying, I might take your favorite girl and cuff her like I'm Ricky. Can't believe he's jumping in, that guy is turning 50. Every song that made it on the chart, he got from Drizzy. Worry about whatever's going on with Ewan. And then he doesn't say the final name, but he does include a Rick Ross ad-lib. And this is most likely in reference to Diddy. Like, if you finish the line here, it's worry about whatever's going on with you and Diddy instead of dissing Drizzy. Of course, also referencing the fact that he just stole Rick Ross's girl and brought her to his concert, right? This was on the leaked version of Push Ups. On the one that actually officially released, Drake changed a couple bars, but there was still more than plenty in there aimed at Rick Ross. So what did Ross do? Well, just hours after the world heard Push Ups, Ross ends up dropping a diss record of his own, literally laying the groundwork for what Kendrick would do just weeks later with Meet the Grams. And while I applaud the speed in which Rick Ross delivered this track, I gotta say it's definitely one of the weaker diss songs that we got out of this battle, right? Rick Ross hits Drake with some generic, commonly thrown insults, like the fact that Drake uses ghostwriters, or that he's getting ripped off by his record labels. Remember when Pusha T 10 years before this rapped, "You're signed to one guy who's signed to one guy who's signed to the other." Yeah, well, Rick Ross now is rapping, "Record label taking a loss, are you in your bag?" Saying that, like, you know, Drake's music is not doing as well as it used to, but it's not Drake that's losing the money, it's the record label because they own all the music. Not a bad line, but what definitely stood out the most about this diss track were two different things. Number one, the fact that Rick Ross accused Drake of getting a nose job.
That's why you had operation to make your nose smaller than your father knows.
And while you could kind of tell from these pictures that it probably wasn't the case, like I don't think Drake had a nose job, Ross was on the money in the fact that Drake probably had some surgical enhancements, but it wasn't in his nose, instead it was in his abs. And this would inspire Ross to quickly coin the term BBL Drizzy. So while Ross may not have had the best diss track of the battle, he definitely added some of the most comedic value to this 20v1. Another major part of this diss track is the fact that at the end of it, Rick Ross reveals that, like I mentioned before, the reason why he unfollowed Drake on Instagram and started this whole back and forth is because Drake had sent a cease and desist to French Montana over a record that they were supposed to release together.
Spicy.
We'll get to that shortly, but in the meantime, according to the biggest OVO Meat Muncher Mall, this diss track just left Drake laughing.
So I said, yo, how you feel about, you know, the roast record? I'm really trying to gauge him, like, damn, he kind of stepped in. He was like, he said he was richer than me and I turned it off.
But that's not what Ross said, though. The reason why Ross changed his voice when he said that bar is because he was impersonating Drake. Like, basically, Drake is saying, I got more money than you. And Ross is like, fuck you want me to say? Like,
yeah.
Now, if Drake was really laughing at this Rick Ross diss track, he'd most definitely be laughing at what Rick Ross would do next. Dozens of minutes of pure comedic value of Rick Ross completely trolling and obliterating Drake on his Instagram. But this wasn't no Meek Mill, Twitter fingers, temper tantrum BS. This was just Rick Ross clowning Drake for the most random, like, rich people things. Saying that Drake has a super old jet that shouldn't even be, you know, flown in by humans. Saying that Birdman went into foreclosure on his house. He's broke now. And even though he was robbing Drake throughout his entire career, Drake should still go and help him and buy him a new house. He was doubling down on Drake's nose being fake, his abs being fake. And the craziest part of all is he started calling Drake white boy.
White boy, BBL Drizzy, I got a question. I saw you posted you got more money than Ricky Rose. And let's assume you did. Well, your best friend, Birdman, his house went into foreclosure 5 years ago. You done watched that man struggle them 5 years and ain't get that man a mansion? Because if you got more money than Rose, what's another 50 million, white boy? White boy, it's one for 40 on Indian Creek. It's one for 50 on Star Island. You got 48 hours, white boy. If you got Ricky Rose money, ain't none of my went in foreclosure. Come on, white boy. I'm finna bust a bottle. White boy, don't do stunner like that. Come on, man. What happened to that? 48 hours, the countdown has begun. And that old ass jet you got, they gave it to you free. That's a 1978. Be safe on that, Drizzy. Be safe on that plane. That old God is great. Hey, no, this shit is really funny because I'm going to tell y'all, it's like battling against nerds. It's like sitting in a class and you watching all the nerds put together their best science project to present to the class. Man, y'all can have that shit. I ain't with that shit. Your nose fake, your stomach fake. You don't write raps. Your biggest homies in foreclosure. Come on, man. Go buy all that's living with each other a big mansion and put the BBL Drizzy logo on the gates. Man, feed, man. Come on, man. Do that shit, man. And y'all need to pray for Drake and tell him, park that old ass plane. It's a 1978. The cargo jet people gave it to him free for promo. And I ain't hating, but be safe, man. If something was to happen to you and I couldn't tell you this, be safe. And anybody getting on it, be safe, man. Wear your seatbelts and make sure the oxygen thing's in there, because that shit was just for luggage. It wasn't for human beings. What? This is a perfect opportunity for y'all to see the type of white boy he is. Soon as that pressure on white boy, he gonna go post stunner in that $20 jogging suit. No, the man needs some paper. And make him say, I got your back. He don't want to say that to that mark. He ain't got that mark back. That mark ain't fed him none. But since you done watched him struggle and gave him, show the world you go buy him, post him when you go buy him. $40 million mansion, white boy. Huh? Huh? Soon as Rose on your ass and you call your mama, then I'ma post Birdman and kiss him on TV. Nah, that's what white boys do. Show your when you go buy him that big mansion, nigga. You know how Stunner and them used to do. Huh? When Stunner was on top, when you was... Come on, white boy, show the world we watching now. Ooh, you when you need them. Ooh. I need you to play that. What happened to that crib? What happened to that crib? Come on, Drizzy. Come on, white boy. Come on. Come on, white boy. Soon as you get in that trouble, ooh, I gotta go stand next to. Ooh, we just watched this on for a real time. See, white boy, I'm a different kind of Rose, I'm rich. I don't need you for a remix, white boy. I don't need you. All them other want to tell you what I'm telling you. I'm saying it for all who ain't in my position. What happened to that crib? Come on, nah, we ain't getting slimy yet. We just warming up. White boy want it. If you want it, be about it. Put it on Miss Gladys. We all got them. We all got them. Let the dogs loose. Y'all want to go there? Let's go there. This Rose, bitch. Nah, ain't nothing wrong with talking shit, but Drake, you got to keep it at one line. That shit you doing got to take 20 minutes. One line or don't DM me no more. Back to the luxuries of life. I might write a song today called Who Knows? Who knows? One thing about, I'm going to say this. You niggas with them BBLs, you niggas, I'm speaking specifically to you niggas with BBLs. If you got a fake body, you got a fake mind, nigga. Leave that shit to them cute bitches walking around in YSL heels. Not you bitch niggas in OVO. The pastrami posse.
Now, Rick Ross and Drake would go back and forth on Instagram over, who's got the bigger house, who's got the nicer jet. Drake would post this. Basically, here he's clowning Rick Ross for having this massive house, but all the acres around it aren't actually owned by him. So he's kind of like sandwiched in very claustrophobically, I guess, but also the house is kind of in the middle of nowhere. Maybe a really rich person who, knows about real estate can explain why this is an insult in the comments. But as far as insults go, the insult that Drake got a nose job would actually make its way back to Drake's own mother, and Drake would post the conversation he had with her onto Instagram. Drake told his mom he would have got a 2-for-1 deal on the nose jobs if he actually went to get one, and he said, "The rumors are coming from Rick Ross, the guy I did songs with. He's gone loopy off the Manjaro he hasn't eaten in days, and it's turned him angry and racist. He's performing at proms for money. It's bad, don't worry, we'll handle it." And this would prompt Rick Ross to double down on the surgically enhanced nose and ab narratives and officially coin the term BBL Drizzy. He went from giving Drake catchphrases like YOLO to making catchphrases at Drake's expense.
Oh, it's such a beautiful day. Me waking up from a nap, I just realized BBL Drizzy called his mommy on me. He shared their text messages between each other. Cupcake Drake, tell your mama you stayed out past your curfew, white boy. You wanted to hang at the park with the niggas, smoke weed with the niggas while we washed our old school Chevys. White boy, you got a Chevy, white boy? I doubt it. But anyway, big nose. Big nose. Boy, you had 25% body fat with a carved out 6-piece. Stop. We know what time it is. That shit costs 40 bands. Stop. But tell your mama, well, in Miami, we say old girl. Tell your old girl she a beautiful lady. I told you that before, and I meant that. But you tell your mama, white boy, you stayed out at the park too late, and you can't call her when you get in this shit. This shit too deep to call your mama, white boy.
What's crazy is, weeks before Kendrick would even release his first diss aimed at Drake, Rick Ross was already bringing up the PDF allegations, because in one of his classic troll Instagram posts against Drake, he would mention the strange situation that occurred between Millie Bobby Brown and Drake. This was on April 18th, 2024, again, 12 days before Kendrick even released his first diss track aimed at Drake. Rick Ross had a bigger hand in clowning Drake throughout this battle than some people may remember.
And no, Rose not trolling, I'm just saying, homie. I'm sticking to the script. The car show June 1st. But look, if you was BG, a nigga that was on Cash Money, and you went and did a 15-year bid, which one you think BG should have came home to? Huh? Or is that too much to give a nigga that gave you his whole life? I'm just asking you a question. That right there, I know Drake would have loved that like Millie Bobby Brown. He would have been all in them DMs. He would have been in them DMs right there. But look, I'm just saying, what y'all think? We ain't trolling, we ain't tripping. It's going down June 1st. We just pulling the whips off in the washer. That's it. And no, this the other crib or the other crib or the other crib or the other crib. Where yo y'all at, nigga?
Now, of course, after this, it'd be Kendrick's turn to step into the ring, right? Rick Ross wouldn't release any more diss tracks of his own, but he would be one of Kendrick's best cheerleaders as Kendrick dropped track after track, absolutely bodying Drake. This was Rick Ross's response when Kendrick just released Euphoria.
White boy, white boy, white boy. Crody, Crody, Crody. Do they even have Wi-Fi on that cargo plane? He may not even heard this yet, but look, white boy, I know we not friends, but let me give you this advice, because you ain't got nobody around you, or you ain't got no real niggas around you. Let me just put it like that. Ain't no real niggas. Stop. Don't respond. Don't respond. You ain't even peeped when the intro came on with the Teddy Pendergrass. That was that black vibe. Don't do it. Don't go write a 8-minute verse that, I know nigga Yachty, I know you want to get that money. You ain't wrong, nigga. Keep buying them big houses, but I'm going to tell you this like a real. Ain't no more BBLs, ain't no more ass fillers, ain't no more cheek fillers.
Here's Rick Ross clowning Drake after Kendrick stomped on his Family Matters diss track Moment by releasing Meet the Grams 30 minutes later.
Damn, white boy, Kendrick done bust you in the head before y'all even finish the publishing splits.
And here's Rick Ross's actual reaction to Meet the Grams, completely praising it while skating over all the disses that Drake sent Ross's way on Family Matters.
See, if you really into this music shit, what I'm listening to right now, what Kendrick just released, is if you was a real Outkast fan and you ever wanted to know what 3000 would be like if he ever was in a battle, nigga, this is the closest you will ever get to Andre 3000, nigga, ever having to do a nigga dirty. This Kendrick Lamar round.
Once Not Like Us dropped, it was a complete party for the entire world, including Rick Ross.
Hold up. They not like us. I'm at the pool party. BBL Drizzy, I'm at the pool party, and they just called you a petty. You a chomo?
And once Drake dropped the Heart Part 6, the entire world kind of clowned him, including Rick Ross.
Heard that new BBL Drizzy, the diss, the bomb. I hold your head up, cut it off like Rick Ross said, hold it up. Himalaya, Anastasia, Fantasia. Cupcake, man, you looking bad, looking bad. You might as well go on Maury Povich and tell your story. Go to Maury Povich.
He's making fun of the simplistic rhyme scheme that Drake took on the Heart Part 6, but also the fact that Drake was clowning Rick Ross for throughout the entire beef, making it seem like Drake's plane was one gust of wind away from completely breaking down. Meanwhile, tragically and ironically, about a week after all that clowning, Rick Ross would actually suffer a plane crash in his own plane. And Drake in this diss song is almost implying that he was the one who orchestrated for that to happen. Now later in the summer, while Drake took L's on L's from Kendrick Lamar, it seemed like he'd catch one tiny little W while Rick Ross did a show out in Canada. Because during the performance, he actually had the DJ play Not Like Us, and he was approached by individuals who are believed to be a part of the Hells Angels biker gang in Canada. And they end up smacking Rick Ross in the face just for playing that song in Canada, and someone in Rick Ross's entourage had also got hit. Of course, I can't play the entire video on YouTube due to, censorship and all that, but I'll let Shig Smooth break down what exactly happened.
Now, while this song was playing, a group of guys confronted Ross and his peoples. They got into a conversation. Keep in mind, the cops is right there. They have no interest in stopping any of this. There should be no way that these guys even made their way to Rose and his people. One thing leads to another in the conversation. Somebody from the other side hits Ross in the face. Ross throws his cup at him and they get into it.
Now, by 2025, Rick Ross would give an interesting answer when he's first asked about, why him and Drake started beefing in the first place. He says it's actually because Drake mentioned his name. I guess technically you could say that Push Ups was the first time either of them had flat out dissed each other by name. But like I showed you guys in this video, like the signs and the little subliminals were there long before Drake released Push Ups. But this is Rick Ross's story to tell.
Are you and Drake really beefing, or that was more like a business type of situation?
He mentioned my name, and that's a no-no. Don't do that.
Later in the year, he would do another interview where he actually said that there's a possibility he'd be open to making amends with Drake, squashing the beef, if Drake sent him over a bottle of his own alcohol.
What was the root cause of the falling out with Drake? Was it someone had told me it was because of the way he had treated French on a record? Is that?
I mean, I spoke on that on the record I released. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, that, you know what I'm saying?
Because y'all got classics together.
If it's real, if real is gonna stay real. That's it. You know what I'm saying? Was it something really deep? Nah, f that though. But if it's real, it's real, and that's what it is.
Could that ever be something you could ever see, like you guys talking it out? And you guys have so many classics together, such a long history together.
You never know. If a nigga send me a bottle of Luke Belaire, especially the white one, the
white bottle, yeah, the white bottle
go for any of these young out here.
Especially if it's a Magnum.
Send me a white Belaire bottle, and I'll take a picture with you, because that white Belaire bottle is the, you know what I'm saying?
Now, Drake would not respond by giving Rick Ross a bottle of Bel Air Rosé, but instead by suggesting Rick Ross gets a chili ice pack for his left eye. This is obviously in reference to the fact that Rick Ross just got punched in the face a year prior while trying to perform Kendrick's Not Like Us diss track in Canada. So Drake is saying, you need an ice pack for your left eye. He said this on What Did I Miss?, his big comeback single for Iceman that then got delayed by a year for whatever reason. Actually, we probably know the reason. It's likely because, episode 1 where he was dissing Rick Ross on What Did I Miss?, that song was pretty good, that moment was kind of exciting, but by the time episode 3 came around, the people had pretty much decided that this whole concept of these Iceman live streams that Drake was doing, and especially the music that came with it, was pretty boring and bad. And Rick Ross wasted no time completely clowning Drake for the fact that everyone hated on Iceman episode 3.
Here's the name of the Aubrey album, White Man. Damn, Champagne Poppy, they say them songs that you just streamed off your new project, White Man, say that shit ain't dope. The comments crazy. And then Kai Cenat, shout out to Kai Cenat, he kept it real. They said Kai said that shit was ass. It's probably A minor.
Nah, but hey, I'm sorry. As much clowning as I might do sometimes to La Brianna, and as small as his and Rick Ross's back and forth was by 2025, Drake definitely won the 2025 aspect of his beef with Rick Ross, just by this one joke alone.
I've never seen someone ice rosé, but...
You never seen someone ice rosé?
Mm-hmm.
Well, talk to every jeweler in Miami that has fake diamonds.
Really, they do that?
Nobody got that joke.
If you don't get that joke, look it up. I don't have time to explain it because we got bigger things to discuss over here, alright? 2026 rolls around and Rick Ross almost immediately starts changing up his tune a little bit. He's asked if there's potential for him and Drake to squash things since this was never that serious, and he says absolutely yes. The same way back in 2015, like I mentioned earlier, how Rick Ross always left the door open for the possibility of him and Drake reconciling. All Drake had to do was address a couple things. He says the same exact thing 11 years later when he's now beefing again with Drake in 2026.
Is there any hope in the future for any future collaborations?
Homie got a lot of issues he gotta address. I'ma leave it right there.
Nah, for
Is
sure.
it any potential of him being a real nigga? He gotta decide that. You understand? But he got shit he gotta deal with and address. And, you know, hopefully it's a lot of niggas that was watching and learn from it. It was unfortunate for him, but for the next generation of people that's of artists like myself that studied the game, watched the game, and I watch greats fall out, have differences or whatever it was. Okay, I see what come with it. I see what go with it. And shit, that's what it is.
And as far as why Rick Ross continued to play his collaborations with Drake at live shows, even though they have issues, Ross says it's because you can't erase your past. You can only focus on building a different future. And he was proud of what he did with Drake in the past. Plus, that extra time where the crowd was just singing the Drake hook left Rick Ross with a little bit of room to, you know, smoke his joint and just kind of chill out for a bit. Take a little break while the crowd was just singing the Drake hooks.
Yeah, one thing that went viral was you playing or performing one of the songs and you commented or something. Is that because you're still proud of the music that you still made regardless of what was going on?
Right. I'm a real nigga, so and being a real nigga, you never change your past. The music I've created in the past, I can never change. I enjoyed it and I'ma still enjoy it. Can't no lame nigga, nobody having differences make me not enjoy something that I've, was a part of. So that's that. I control what goes on from here on. That's what the boss decides. The shit in the past, that I'ma just enjoy that. And I let my fans enjoy that. And the sad part about it is when I play those records, everybody just be standing and they don't sing his part no more. They like, we not going, and I be like, no, y'all could sing it. Sing the little man part, man. Whatever, you know what I'm saying? That's when I hit my joint. I like him to sing his part because that's when I can hit my joint and sip my Luke Belair.
Now, it seemed like Rick Ross changed his tune a little bit over the next few weeks because he had a versus battle with French Montana, and instead of just letting the Drake hook play as he performed, he actually requested that the DJ remove the Drake vocals so that the crowd could go full-on karaoke with it and just sing it off the top of their heads.
Look, I want to do Aston Martin music minus Drake vocals. So no Drake vocals. Minus Drake vocals. Too easy. You want to sing that? I'm gonna let you sing that.
Now, after this versus, Ross is asked, where he kind of stands with Drake at this point. And remember, like I said earlier in this video, Ross likes to give some pretty cryptic, vague answers, not really, hitting the point, to which he's asked about in a clear, concise way, kind of speaking all over the place. And with this answer, it's no different, right? This might be the most confusing Rick Ross answer we've ever gotten in an interview, because is he showing love to Drake? Is he saying, I want to see you win? Or is he saying, like, it would be lame of me to not want to see you win? So I'm not saying I want to see you lose, but simultaneously, you've been moving funny behind the scenes, pulling these cease and desists on, my friends and your friends. Like, this is not what I did when I was at the top of the game. That's how I determine this cryptic answer.
If you listening to this, homie, listen to me. My nigga, shine. I don't want to see you lose. No real nigga want to see you lose. That ain't what niggas about. This culture, this game, this rap shit, this ain't what it's about. I don't want to see you lose. Real niggas just want to see real niggas shine together. Real niggas come up together. You understand? When I was the number one nigga in the rap game, I showed niggas love. When French was on fire, he showed niggas love.
Then Rick Ross seemingly extends the largest olive branch we've seen him give in the last 2 years by saying that, he wasn't being disrespectful by asking the DJ to remove the vocals. That's just what happens in the moment. And he made sure to emphasize that French Montana really rocks with Drake, and Rick Ross himself respects the fact that people he respects respect Drake.
Nigga, don't hate on no nigga. And when I said that on stage, my nigga, I let DJ Nasty call that shit out. Whatever we gonna do, DJ Nasty, you let me know. Okay, we doing Aston Martin minus the Drake vocals. And when I said that, my nigga, wherever homie at, look, Montana still fuck with you on 1000.
Yeah, shout out to Drake.
Listen to me.
It's all love.
Montana done came to me and nigga, we done had conversations, nigga. Listen, we ain't on no I'm not on no disrespectful shit. Montana, a real nigga. Ricky Rose, you know me. You know I love to be disrespectful. That's what I am. But my nigga, listen, it's deeper than rap. It's deeper than rap, homie. This the first time I said this. Montana fuck with you the long way. You understand? Ain't no funny shit on this side. It's 1000. And when I play records, I perform records, my nigga. Ricky Rose was the biggest nigga in the game, nigga. I had motherfucking John Legend and all the biggest niggas in the game on speed dial, ready to do albums with me. We collaborated with the niggas all my homies wanted to.
Rick Ross then starts joking around a little bit. I mean, remember again, like in his diss song against Drake, he says that Drake got a nose job, right? He had a fake nose. Well, now Ross starts going down memory lane, saying that, you know, French Montana told Ross that they should work with Drake when Rick Ross was at the top of the game, which none of this makes sense, by the way. Again, this is all vague and cryptic and kind of a little bit of cap sprinkled in there, because we know Rick Ross knew Drake long before he was even affiliated with French Montana. But anyways, he says, you know, French Montana introduced Ross to Drake at the time when Drake still had the quote-unquote bigger nose, because again, he's implying that Drake got a little nose job, right? But he also says here, shout out to Drake. So it's really more unclear than ever where he stands.
But nigga, the niggas in the studio, Montana, like, call my nigga Drake. Cool. Call me. Before I knew him. Just on some 1000 shit. I would love to throw in right now, that's when you had the big nose, but we ain't gonna go there.
Shout out to Drake, man. Let's not, you was doing good.
Shout out.
You was doing good.
Almost ended on a positive note.
You was doing good.
This the first time I'ma say this.
You was doing good.
This the first time I'ma say this. Shout out to homie.
Yeah, shout out to Drake, man.
Yeah,
We're with you, man.
Montana riding for you, nigga.
Yeah.
You got real niggas on your side riding for you. And when you got real niggas riding for you, my nigga, niggas gonna respect it. I'm not gonna disrespect it.
So guys, this is weird, right? I mean, this whole beef started, apparently, according to Rick Ross, because Drake had sent a cease and desist over to French Montana over a song. Rick Ross didn't like that, so he dissed Drake. But then you look at it, and French Montana seems to have no problem with Drake. Rick Ross is even saying that French Montana messes with Drake. So why would Rick Ross start a 2-year beef with Drake over an issue pertaining to French Montana that French Montana doesn't even care about? I mean, French and Drake were spotted on a gambling live stream together in the summer of 2025, so it's obvious that they still hang out. What even is this mysterious cease and desist that Ross was referring to? Well, it's likely over a record that both Ross, French Montana, and Drake were originally supposed to do all together. In fact, it was supposed to be a sequel to Stay Schemin', which was the legendary collab that French, Ross, and Drake did back in 2012 together. French actually told the story in 2026, but just like Rick Ross, he's very vague with his answers. He's asked about why the song never ended up coming out the way it was, right? Because when it officially released, Lil Wayne was actually on the song instead of Drake. French says that it was something in Rick Ross's verse that he needed to go back and change, and because of that, it just took too long and the song never ended up coming out. But if you dig deeper, it was most likely actually something Drake said in his verse that prompted him to potentially send that cease and desist to make sure the song never released. I'll let French Montana explain, his reasoning why the song didn't come out, and then we'll put some pieces together.
Crazy. What can you tell me the story what happened with the Splash Brothers record and how he didn't end up on it?
Splash Brothers record. The Splash Brothers record.
There's a leaked version with Drake on it.
There's a leaked version, but the Splash Brothers record never came out with Drake because the version that we had with Drake, it had a verse from Rose that I think Drake was waiting for another verse from Rose for that record. You know what I'm saying? I think he wanted him to cut another verse because something happened. Either he said something on the first verse or something had happened.
And he was
You
just
know?
like, hey, I'm down, but
yeah, I'm down.
can
but
we switch up this
but,
verse?
But it was supposed to be a Stay Scheming Part 2.
Oh shit!
So that was the whole thing. When Drake sent me Splash Brothers, Drake actually sent it to me for his album.
Oh.
So Splash Brothers was Drake's song, and Drake sent it to me. He was like, "Yo, go in the studio, make like 3 different hooks, and let me pick the best one." So I went in there, I did like 3 different hooks on it. I sent it to Drake. He heard it. He was like, "All right, this is the one." So I'm like, "All right, you like that one?" He was like, "All right." So we went in there. He cut it. He changed a few words that he wanted me to say. He sent it back. So I went in. I cut the hook. I sent it to him. He did his verse first. So it was my hook and his verse. And by the time I flew out to see him in Bahamas, he already had Rose verse too. But he was like, it was like something Rose had said something. It was something with the verse. So it's supposed to be for Drake album. I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, the album After the Views.
It's probably fuck, I don't know. They all did the last 7 years of rap is all blended together for me, especially when it comes to his discography.
Yeah, it's all like one day.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, but it was supposed to be for his album. And since Ross didn't do the verse on time, he was like, "You want the record?" I was like, "I'll take it."
Yeah.
So it was never something like it was mine, and it was just like, you know, he just gave me the record for my album.
Well, I hope you get the band back together one day, because all 3 of y'all together is like, it's like the Warriors.
It'll happen.
It's like the Golden State Warriors,
It'll happen,
2017. With KD.
Brothers always fight and make up, man. It'll happen. Nobody got shot. Nobody died. Nobody, you know.
Yo, I'm curious, man.
So he says that this was a song they were cooking up for Drake's album, and there was the album right after Views. Now, the timeline's important here, and again, French Montana is vague, and he's also wrong. It couldn't have been the album after Views, because that was 2017's More Life album. At that point in time, Drake and Rick Ross were still feuding over the Meek Mill beef, so there's no way that Drake was looking to do a second part of Stay Scheming around then. I believe that him and Ross were still not on collaborating terms by Drake's next album either, Scorpion, in 2018, because him and Meek Mill had not publicly made amends just yet. If I had to guess, this song was intended to be on Certified Lover Boy, which in that era we saw Drake collaborate with Rick Ross several times. Like I said before, Lemon Pepper Freestyle and You Only Live Twice. It was also on that project where Drake was taking a lot of shots at Kanye West. Obviously, Kanye got drawn into the whole Pusha versus Drake beef, and after that, Drake was continuously going at Kanye, insinuating that he may have had S relations with Kanye's wife, Kim. And on this French Montana Rick Ross record, Drake even raps, "On Double MG, I'd F a rapper's wife. She's not even my type, but I'd make the sacrifice. People know the real secrets up in Hidden Hills." Now, Drake lived just a couple minutes away from Kanye and Kim in the Hidden Hills at the time that he was heavily dissing Kanye West. Here Drake is starting off his verse talking about effing a rapper's wife. Now this song never made it onto a Drake project, but in 2021, very late 2021 to be exact, French Montana had teased that the song was about to make it onto his new project, They Got Amnesia. But then he suddenly claims that Drake pulled the song because there were still edits to be made to it. And then again, like we know, a couple years later, French Montana releases the song with a Lil Wayne verse and the same Rick Ross verse that was on the original leaked version. So his whole claim that, oh, you know, we were going to release the song, but then Rick Ross had to change his verse up, so it never got released. Well, then why did you end up releasing the version with the same exact Rick Ross verse? How does any of this make sense, right? Well, like I said, the timeline is important because those statements that French Montana made in 2021, where he said that, you know, Drake felt like the song wasn't ready, it was rushed, they needed to edit it still. This was around the same exact time that Jay Prince had actually got Kanye West and Drake to squash their beef and do a performance together. If I had to guess, the quote-unquote cease and desist that Rick Ross was talking about that Drake sent French Montana is in relation to this. He was dissing Kanye West, talking about sleeping with Kanye's wife on this song that was probably recorded in the middle of 2021 when Drake was gearing up to drop Certified Lover Boy, which was full of different nostalgia-based collaborations, right? I mean, you had a song called You Only Live Twice on there with Rick Ross and Lil Wayne, obviously tapping back into the essence of what they had going on in the Take Care days when Rick Ross actually coined that you only live once term, right? So it makes sense that Drake was thinking, hey, let's continue tapping into the nostalgia and release a Stay Scheming Part 2 on my Certified Lover Boy album. So he calls up French Montana, he calls up Rick Ross, they get the song done. He's dissing Kanye West, talking about sleeping with Kim, because on that entire project, CLB, he wasn't getting along with Kanye, so it's full of Kanye disses. But just a couple weeks after Certified Lover Boy did end up dropping, him and Kanye end up squashing the beef. You still got this French Montana, Drake, Rick Ross collaboration that's just sitting on the cutting room floor, right? So French decides to scoop it up and put it on his own project. But at this point, Drake and Kanye are cool, so it's likely that Drake had his lawyer send something over to French's team to make sure that that song, where Drake is dissing Kanye, never got released. Now, that kind of takes care of the whole cease and desist theory that was floating around that was concocted by Rick Ross, but it still doesn't explain why French Montana never seemed to have a problem with Drake, but somehow Rick Ross did. There's some other theories that might explain that. For example, the whole Drake owning part of Gamma theory. Gamma is an independent record label started by Larry Jackson. There were theories floating around, I believe they were started by Joe Budden, that Drake owned part of the catalogs of artists that were signed to Gamma, and guess who signed to Gamma? French Montana and Rick Ross. Maybe Rick Ross didn't like that not only did Drake own a portion of his music if he really was a partial owner of Gamma, but now he was also playing industry games by, cease and desisting certain collaborations that they had together. It's important to note, though, that Larry Jackson and Rick Ross both deny the allegation or theory that Drake owned any part of Gamma.
As much as I love and respect you, I certainly threw out some wild theories regarding Gamma as it pertains to Drake and why people may be so angry at him. Totally unfounded and without basis and merit. But it was a fun pod. It was a fun pod to try to discover some of these things without jamming you up, because I don't really want, now that I'm with you, I don't want to include you in my mess. But do you think that Drake's deals are a point of contention for his peers?
I can't answer that question. It's not appropriate on my place. I have to definitely display good cultural etiquette. So, do you like your water? Would you like any ice with that?
No, this is excellent. This is some of the best water I've had.
It's good, no?
No, it's good.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll at least say my wild theory. My wild theory was that Drake had to have some type of hand in Gamma, which is why he's promoting Ross albums and Sexy Red. And he must have some type of deal that's not even available to other people, to whereas he gets to be the owner and player, or player and whatever that other title is, like Herb Williams used to be for the Knicks, player coach. Like, he's just twofold.
Now, there's one more final theory that I think kind of adds a layer to the whole, French Montana cease and desist thing that Rick Ross was claiming was the real reason behind their beef, right? See, a couple years before this whole issue went down, Rick Ross was actually trying to get both Lil Wayne and Pusha T on the same song together, which would have been historical given the long-standing history of beef that Pusha T has had with Cash Money members, Lil Wayne and Drake included. Both Lil Wayne and Pusha ended up sending in a verse for the song. It's called Maybach Music 6, and on there, Pusha T was ironically dissing Drake. When the record actually releases on Ross's album, it only features Lil Wayne. The Pusha T verse, even though it leaked online, you could go listen to it, it was not on the official version. So what ended up happening? Well, we know on Drake's end, he actually was on the main single for this same exact album. The single was called Gold Roses, but suddenly it comes time to shoot the music video for it, and Drake is nowhere to be found.
You see this name right here? Pusha T. So Pusha T's on it, Drake's like, I'm cool. Feel me? So because Drake does this, allegedly, Drake goes for the whole video, for the other joint. So Ross puts Pusha T here. Ross, I don't think Ross is playing no politics. But now Ross does that. Ain't no Drake for the video. You got to imagine Ross is feeling away. He got to feel away.
Now, Pusha T himself would actually confirm this multiple times. Recently, in a GQ interview, he talks about his frustrations behind the fact that Drake has had a lot of things blackballed for Pusha T ever since their beef in 2018, since both of them are signed under UMG. Pusha and his brother Malice actually had to pay 7 figures to get out of their contract with UMG because UMG would not allow them to release their Reunion Clips album with a Kendrick Lamar verse since the quote-unquote optics of Pusha and Kendrick standing next to each other in the summer of 2024 would look bad after all the damage that both rappers had done to Drake's reputation. This was UMG basically bending the knee to whatever Drake wanted and doing their best to not ruffle his feathers or even worse, get sued by him, right? But it goes back even further. Pusha also mentioned that this was an ongoing issue, and it started peeking its head out in the public eye in 2021 when Pusha, Young Thug, and Gunna were all on the same track for a posthumous Pop Smoke album, and on there it sounded like Pusha T was dissing Drake. When the word came about that he was allegedly dissing Drake, Young Thug got on Instagram and said, "I want nothing to do with this song if I'm on it where Pusha T is dissing La Brianna." So Pusha T hopped on Instagram and posted this. "Young Thug, a couple things. Don't feel bad. Nobody knew what my verse was about. The label heads that stopped the song from coming out, they didn't even know. They only assume because Drake told them, the same way Drake told about the Rick Ross Maybach 6 verse. And if he'll tell record executives about rap verses, Lord only knows what else he'll tell. I don't deal in police work, police rappers, or police guys." So what Pusha here is implying is that Drake went to label executives and said, "Hey, Rick Ross is about to drop a new album with a song on there with Lil Wayne and Pusha T is out here dissing me. I want you guys to go and remove the song." That's what Pusha is implying here. And it'd be pretty crazy to think that Drake would go behind his friends Rick Ross and Lil Wayne's back to snitch on them to the record label to stop this Pusha T verse from coming out. And then according to Akademiks, Drake, as a punishment to Rick Ross, kind of fumbled his whole lead single to the album by not showing up to the music video. So if you add that onto the theory that years later, Drake sent a cease and desist to stop a French Montana Rick Ross collaboration from releasing, it makes sense that with these two pretty major instances, Rick Ross would be frustrated with someone he probably considers a friend and a longtime collaborator playing all these crooked industry games, especially if you add on the fact that there's this floating rumor or theory going around that Drake may even own part of both French and Ross's catalogs, right? So he's stopping Pusha T verses from being on Rick Ross's album. Then he's stopping his own verses from releasing on French and Rick Ross's songs. Then he might own part of the record label where he's removing all these records from streaming platforms and doing all this weird stuff behind the scenes. Maybe this is a culmination of several instances that have left Rick Ross at the point of no return. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you in the next one.
Bars. Damn. Niggas say 3 albums are trash albums, 2 years too late. What site is this? Complex? The Glazer University. Oh my God. I've been a long fan. Oh my God. Mr. YouTube. Fuck a big 3 anyway. There was too many chefs in the kitchen. Bars. Come on, guys, stop. Y'all gotta, let's all leave Lil Mans alone now, man. He did it. He dropped 3 mid projects. Hey, man, it was fun while it lasted. You're washed. It's a beautiful morning. Perfect time to feed yourself the knowledge. The knowledge. What's that? Rory and Maul, get off your knees. Get the testicles out of your mouth now. I don't know which one, the white one or the black one. Y'all both the same. Rory Maul, the Glazers. The Glazers. How y'all feel now? You know, Drake just committed suicide. I'm sure he'll retire next month. How is his lawsuit doing? How is the Drake University lawsuit coming? I don't know. I don't know, guys. I didn't listen to YouTube, man, last night. I'm just going by what you guys say. But once again, we up again, baby. It's the biggest boss. Where's Iceman? There's Iceman. The throat goats are in the building, guys.
I study rap
Aholics.
for a living.